Shalom, y'all, and welcome back to our New Testament Bible study of the Scriptures through a Jewish lens. I'm Beth Shulam, and thanks for watching. Today, I'm going to look at a passage that I feel like is super relevant for today. 1 Corinthians chapter 1. And here, Paul is asking us some really big questions. Who is wise? And who really has power? And the answer just might surprise you. Because God's wisdom doesn't look like the world's wisdom at all. So let's dig in. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, I'm going to start at verse 20 and go through probably the end of the chapter. Where is the one who is wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since, in the wisdom of God, the world did not know God through wisdom, God decided through the foolishness of our proclamation to save those who believe. For Jews demand signs, and Greeks desire wisdom. But we proclaim Yeshua crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But those who are the called, both Jews and Greeks, Yeshua, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For God's foolishness is wiser than human wisdom, and God's weakness is stronger than human strength. Consider your own call, brothers and sisters. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, things that are not, to reduce to nothing things that are, so that no one might boast in the presence of God. He is the source of your life in Yeshua, who became for us wisdom from God, and righteousness and sanctification and redemption, in order that, as it is written, let the one who boasts, boast in the Lord. The believers in Corinth lived in a culture obsessed with status, philosophy, wealth, influence, rhetoric. Does this sound familiar? They thought power and eloquence were the marks of success. And Paul steps in and says, actually, God flips that all the way upside down. He reminds us the Messiah was crucified, the most shameful death in Roman society. To the world, that looks like failure. But in God's reality, it is a victory. God is not impressed by our titles, degrees, or how many followers we have on our social media page. He's looking at something deeper. Humble, surrendered hearts. Paul says, we proclaim Yeshua crucified, not Yeshua a conqueror. At least not in the way the world expected. In Jewish thought, the Messiah was supposed to bring national redemption and restoration. In Greek and Roman thought, gods were all about dominance, strength, power. But Yeshua came in weakness and humility, to suffer and then redeem us. And to both Jews and Gentiles, that seemed illogical, crazy. But it is through his weakness that God's ultimate strength was revealed. In a world chasing image and power, the cross stands as a reminder. Real victory often looks like surrender. Paul is challenging the Corinthian believers and us to rethink everything. Our worldly wisdom says, protect yourself, climb the ladder, look impressive. But God's wisdom says, humble yourselves, serve other people, trust in what seems invisible. The foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. This is a kingdom where the first will be last and the meek inherit the earth. It's not about abandoning wisdom altogether. It's about recognizing that true wisdom begins with an awe of God. I love what Paul says next. He says, consider your own call, brothers and sisters. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were powerful. Not many of noble birth. Translated, you weren't the world's top dogs, but God chose you anyway. He delights in using the unexpected, the ordinary person, the broken person, because then nobody can boast about it being me that did it. It's not about how great we are. It's about how great He is through us, how He works through us. Paul ends this section by quoting from the prophet Jeremiah. Jeremiah says, let the one who boasts, boast in the Lord. It's not about pointing towards us. It's about pointing to Him. The world teaches us to build a brand, make a name, leave a legacy. But the gospel calls us to build His kingdom, lift up His name, and rest in His victory. Are we chasing that worldly wisdom or letting God's foolish wisdom shape us? So what's my takeaways from 1 Corinthians chapter 1? God isn't looking for the most impressive person. He's looking for the most surrendered. And He did that when He chose David as king. Samuel went through all of the brothers, and God kept saying, no, 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 until He got to David, the smallest one, and said, that's the one I want. True wisdom does not always make sense through the world's view. And our calling is to boast, but not about what we have done, but in what God has done through Yeshua. Here's my challenge for you this week. Ask yourself, where am I relying on my own strength instead of God? And I'm asking myself this question right now. Where am I relying on my own strength instead of God's? Celebrate those areas in which you feel weak, because those are often the places that God will shine through the brightest. And remember, when you feel small and insignificant, unimpressive, or overlooked, you're exactly the kind of person God loves to use. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me today. If it encouraged you, what I've said, like it, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel so you can keep hearing and knowing when we're giving new content, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that God's ways are beautifully different. And drop me a comment below. What does boasting in the Lord look like for you right now? So until next time, stay humble, Stay hopeful and keep walking in the wisdom of God. Shalom, y'all, and thank you. Bye-bye.
קומי אורי, כי בא אורך, וכבוד אדוני עלייך זרח. קומי אורי, כי בא אורך, וכבוד אדוני עלייך זרח.